Welcome to the MEF2C Cast, a podcast dedicated to educating, supporting, and building community around MEF2C haploinsufficiency syndrome.
The MEF2C cast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily of the podcast or its sponsors. This is not medical advice. Consult a healthcare professional for medical concerns.
Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome to the MEF2C Cast. We are here with James Kelly and Lorena García Fernández. So why don't you guys just start by telling us a little bit about your family, your kids, and as much or as little as you'd like.
Sure. Yeah, so we're based in the UK. We live in a town called Huddersfield, which is near Manchester and Leeds, somewhere in between the two. That helps give some context to those non-UK people. We're well, I don't know what to say really. We met maybe when did we meet? 15 years ago now, at work. And yeah, we've kind of settled in this area. You're originally from
Spain, yeah. Hence the Garcia Fernandez.
And we have two boys. So Elijah, who's the one with MEF2C, is our first and eldest. He's now approaching 5.5 or 5. Yeah. And then Stefan is our second child. He is now just nearly 20 months. And that's a fascinating contrast in of itself, just having a child like Elijah and then what we believe to be a neurotypical child. That's been a fascinating journey for us. We're both engineers, so we both obviously work for the same company as I mentioned. So yeah, that's us.
Awesome. Great name, by the way, Elijah's. I've always had really good luck with those guys.
Yeah, I can't choosing his name. We put way more effort into that than I think we did Stefan's name. Maybe it's the first child thing.
Yeah.
I just think we liked it.
Yeah.
There was not much to it.
So, can you tell us a little bit about how kind of your journey to get Elijah's diagnosis, what kind of led you to pursue it and how that all transpired?
Sure. Well, I think, the pregnancy was pretty normal. Delivery was all normal, or normal enough that there was nobody picked up on anything. I think in hindsight, we're like, oh, there's some, which I think everybody has. But it wasn't really until 4 months old where you were like, this doesn't seem normal.
Yeah, he wasn't smiling by 4 months, and he wasn't really grasping any toys or anything. And yeah, I think for context, this was right when COVID kicked off. So he was born, and then 2 weeks later, the world went in lockdown. So we hadn't really seen any other babies since he was born. And yeah, we went to the GP, and I remember she was like, "Oh, it's fine. He's got time to catch up. It's not, on time, but it's not clinically delayed because that's how they measure it. Until they are clinically delayed, they won't really take any action. But at each point, they're really, really late when they get to that point. So
I think he was doing just enough because he rolled over, not too delayed. Yeah, more or less on time. He was rolling from say front to back.
Yeah.
And he would give you the occasional bit of eye contact. Like it was just enough I think, for them to shoo us away. And I think the whole COVID situation just made that worse. They just didn't want to see patients in person. They would, all the healthcare resources were focused on dealing with that issue.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it's just now occurring to me that probably most of the people with diagnoses were either born or trying to get that diagnosis during COVID.
Yeah.
And I hadn't considered that at all, but that would make the whole thing way more complicated because I know there was a lot of social delays in children in general during COVID because of lockdown. So yeah, that just occurred to me as a complicating factor that I hadn't considered before, but please continue.
I think we're relatively lucky in the sense that by the time he got to 8 months old, he actually had his first seizure. And we did get admitted for a week in hospital. And the neurologist just said, we're just going to keep you in as an inpatient because all the tests that we need to do are going to take months and months and months if you do it as an outpatient. So we're just going to do it all. And, because he was really, I'm going to say, puzzled. He had no idea what it was like. This doesn't really fit any epilepsy profile for the conditions. It's a bit different. So pretty quickly he was like, this has to be genetic.
Yeah, within the space of a few days of observing Elijah, this neurologist was like, this looks like it's a genetic form of epilepsy.
Yeah.
They were kind of wrestling between that and like West syndrome or something of that nature.
Yeah,
but yeah,
the fact that he kept him in and did the genetic tested there and then he came back a few months later, but otherwise it would have been like
a more protracted process for sure.
Yeah.
And he went through a battery of tests in hospital, like, I don't know, you had like 3 EEGs.
In the course of a week.
MRI, spinal tap, just, check cerebral fluid for signs of like metabolic disorders. Loads of blood work. And I know it was tough on him. But I think also at the time the seizures were pretty bad, that he was wiped out, really. He was just exhausted all the time. I don't think he really, for the spinal tap, they had like 4 or 5 nurses and doctors to try and pin him down to make sure he didn't move. They didn't need any of that. He was just so exhausted, they could just do the spinal tap with relative ease. So it was pretty severe by that point. But I think they, credit to the NHS in that moment, they responded, I think, appropriately and did what they had to do.
And the results then came back a week before his birthday, exactly. I will not forget that.
Yeah, his first birthday.
Right a week before. So he's got this thing, which I don't really know what it is, or I've never seen it before. You can, they found unique online. There's some information online, but that's it. There's no treatment. Good luck. It was kind of like, okay.
For us, though, I think it was like, we know thy enemy. Like, for me, it was like, I can label this thing. That means we can learn about it. We can do something now. We know what it is. But even so, I think that there was definitely a grieving process. I think that probably started from the moment we went into hospital and we realised like everything got turned upside down. But maybe it was more true once we got the official diagnosis. Like, there's no fix in this.
Yeah, there's no way it's temporary. There's no way
we
can be treated.
Yeah, like West syndrome, you go through the protocol. We went the prednisolone bigabatrin protocol, and maybe you can correct the hypsarrhythmia and come out the other side of it okay. This was like, no, this is lifelong. And so there was definitely it probably took a while in reality, like months of just adjusting to what it meant.
Was there any sense of relief to have gotten to the bottom of what it was?
Definitely, yeah. I don't know if that's our the engineering need, but we had a problem that we then wanted to solve. We knew what was in front of us at that point.
Yeah, I mean, most engineers I know love having problems to solve, and they're usually not very passive people. So they're not like, oh, okay, so it makes sense that you guys immediately jumped into action mode.
Yeah, I would like to say immediately. I do think it was
probably I'm gonna say 8 or 9 months of
absorbing. I suggest we did jump into action in terms of reading as much literature as we could find.
Right.
But we didn't really, that idea of, hang on, we should do something about it, I probably took 6 months plus to emerge.
Sure. Yeah. Does he have any other diagnoses or just the MCHS?
Yeah, wow. So if you looked at his medical records, it will also say West syndrome, I think. But I think that's more just they haven't crossed that one off and left the actual diagnosis. So I'm sure his medical records say other things, but no, he doesn't have any other genetic diagnoses. He's not diagnosed with, say, autism or anything else. I'm sure as a subheader to the MCHS diagnosis, it will say global developmental delay. He's registered with cerebral visual impairment. He's got some other boxes checked there, but they're all under the banner of MCHS.
Was there a reason, either way that you didn't pursue the, an autism diagnosis, or just, you didn't feel it was necessary, or?
Because I don't think it would have made a difference here. So in the UK, they treat based on what they see. So if he has, for example, so Elijah doesn't walk. So if he needs physiotherapy, it'll be based on the fact that he doesn't walk, not on the fact that he's got an autism diagnosis. So they treat clinically, I guess.
Yeah, they treat clinically, not based on a diagnosis. There's no like need to satisfy insurance like categories or any of that here. It's purely based on like needs assessments.
Yeah, and that whether you've got an official diagnosis or not. Plus, I don't think it could pass like an autism diagnosis anyway.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to take the test. And I think there's pros and cons to that approach with the healthcare system. I mean, I get frustrated by the fact that we have to fill in forms every kind of couple of years describing his situation so that we can continue to get the things he needs. Right, and I'm like, but he's got this diagnosis, that should be enough. That should be it. But they don't look at that. They purely base it on his needs in the moment of the assessment.
Yeah, I was talking to Aaron and Chris yesterday, and we were kind of trading notes between how the healthcare system works in the US and Canada. And it seems like the main difference is in the US, you have to fight your insurance company, and in Canada, you have to fight the government. But either way, you're still fighting somebody, you know what I mean? So it was frankly kind of disappointing that it seems no matter which way you go, it's not going to be easy. But yeah, I was just curious because it seems like, and I everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not criticizing anybody here, but some people in the community just sort of have philosophical opposition to getting an autism diagnosis, where for me personally, like for whatever reason, I need to categorize things. So it felt important to me to have that diagnosis just to help me kind of wrap my head around everything, and obviously for all the additional access to resources that we get here.
Yeah, I think if it were to enable Elijah to have additional resources, we would definitely be pursuing it. I just don't think we've run into that barrier over here.
You got the diagnosis, and then you talked about it a little bit, but can you kind of talk about what you did after that, sort of how you processed it, and then how you move forward?
I guess there's two aspects to it. One is how we processed it ourselves, and then there's how we and then there's the branch of, well, what did it mean for Elijah and what happened to him. For us, like I said, it was trying to research and learn about this, and we were like, surely there's a treatment. There's got to be something we can do. So, and then, reality sinks in. That's not the case. And we obviously went onto social media, found the Facebook group, found the unique information. So there was all of that kind of just how do we learn about what it is we're facing. With Elijah, it was, well, starting physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy. I don't remember how many other therapies there were. Like other types of your traditional physiotherapy. We were like hydrotherapy, rebound therapy, like on trampolines. Like but like how can we throw the kitchen?
Yeah, we should probably say, I forgot about this, but so when we got the diagnosis from the neurologist, I said, he said all these things about, well, I don't know what this is, but the one thing he said was he's probably not gonna live to adulthood. Because his hypotonia is gonna cause him some health issues related to being less mobile, and he's gonna have lots of chest infections, and this type of kids end up not making it to adulthood. So I think that was probably, at least for me, that was the shock factor. I think.
Yeah, that's the polite way of saying it. Yeah.
Because when you started listing all the physiotherapies and stuff, it's maybe gonna sound out of context, but I think it was in the context of we need to get him moving. There was a lot of like
urgency
around that. Yeah.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing. In hindsight, I wonder if, and having gotten to know this neurologist over the last 4 years now, because he's been with Elijah for that entire time.
Really,
I think it was a bit of a kick. Like, I don't know if he's definitely changed tunes now. Now he's seen how Elijah has progressed, and he's obviously learned a bit more about the condition. But I think that was his way of motivating us to treat it with urgency. Harsh.
It's a heck of a way.
Yeah, I'm
But I'm
sure that was the best strategy.
Yeah, he was like, it was like, it was that shock factor, and it worked, right? We were on it like every day. So, and I think it is, whilst Elijah is still very delayed, I think it's definitely paying dividends.
Yeah. So was there a time when because you said Elijah got diagnosed, that would have been like 4-ish years ago now,
Yeah.
right then? Was that their understanding based on the data at that time that that it would shorten his life
No,
expectancy? Like,
it
where
was
did he come
very
up with that?
generalized. Like, he has severe hypertonia. He has a pretty severe epilepsy profile that's looks difficult to we're gonna find it hard to control. You know, add all these factors together, the outlook's not great. That
I
was
see. So specific to Elijah more so than for MCHS in
correct. Yeah,
general
correct. Yeah,
was what you
absolutely.
meant.
It was with no context of the condition at all. It was just what he saw in Elijah was concerning for the long term.
Okay, that makes sense. So what does Elijah's daily routine look like now?
So now he's in school. So he goes to a special needs school in the area. He's kind of up at like 7:30. We get ready for school like a normal family, really. He gets out of school by like 9:30. Has a day at school. Um, Obviously very different type of classroom environment to mainstream. We pick him up at 3. He will have physio. He has physiotherapy every day in school. And then we also supplement that with additional physiotherapy at home
3 times per week.
3 times per week. And then there's whatever he does with just mum and dad, practicing things. And yeah, he tends to, when he gets home from school, I think school's tough. Like, they work him hard, whether it's mentally with, focusing on activities or through physiotherapy. So he tends to have a nap for a couple of hours when he gets home. And then he's up for the evening and
Goes to bed late.
goes to bed late, maybe like 10 p.m. And then he'll typically kind of bounce around his bed for a while before he settles. And, he's normally asleep maybe midnight. He's actually asleep. And then, yeah, repeat. But he's one thing that, I think Elijah may buck the trend is he's actually a good sleeper. I blame that on the Spanish genes. I think that he's a great siesta. You put him down for a midday nap, he's pretty good. And he typically sleeps through. So maybe like midnight through to 7, 8 a.m. without a peep. I don't know why that is. I mean, we got very good control of his seizures now, so that might be one aspect of it. And I think he goes to bed when he's knackered, so he is out. When he's out, he's out. So I think there's that to it too. I reckon if we tried putting him down at maybe a more normal time for a 5-year-old, he would be up at like 3, 4 a.m. or something like that, and shouting at us to come and get him. I think pushing him
Yeah,
to helps.
the Spanish genes would explain the late bedtime too.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's
maybe there's something to that.
yeah. The siesta, the late bedtime, definitely.
Yeah.
What variation does he actually have?
So Elijah's got almost a perfect deletion of the gene, like almost perfect deletion. It spreads over to the antisense MEF2C gene just a tad, but it's pretty much a perfect.
How are you managing his seizures now? I know we've talked a little bit before about you have him on a ketogenic diet.
Yeah, and it's a combination therapy, so it's ketogenic diet, and then low to moderate dose of sodium valproate. The journey to gaining control of his seizures and his epilepsy was tough, really tough for us. It probably took, so from 8 months, it took about a year,
Year and a half.
a year and a half to find the right recipe.
Until, well, it wasn't, so he went on the keto diet as part of a clinical trial for infants. So he started that just before he was 2.
Yes.
And then it took a few months because it takes a while for that to kick in and do what. If it's going to work, it takes a few months. So it was not until he was 2 and a bit.
Yeah, but backing that up, like we left the hospital 8 months old with Kepra, and then we might have been on it for a day, and then the neurologist called us and said, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to do that. Put that down. We're going to go for the West syndrome treatment and just see if that works, because if it does, fantastic. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll move on to the next thing. So we tried the high dose steroids, prednisolone and vigabatrin, and that was like a 6-week high dose steroids course. That really did shut down the seizures. Like, he might have been having 60 to 80 like myoclonic seizures a day, and they were the ones that we could count. So they probably missed a bunch as well, to maybe like 5 or 0 when he was on the prednisolone. But as soon as we weaned that and he was off, they came straight back and they were as bad as before. So that clearly didn't work. They then put us on Topamax, topiramate, and that also may have reduced them a very tiny amount.
It's a bit, but it really
But
let
that
him.
just shut him down, like personality wise. He was just not with us. So that didn't work. We then went back to, oh no, so at that point, he was like, okay, we've tried prednisolone, we've tried vigabatrin, we've tried Topamax, they're not working. You can now be diagnosed with drug-resistant epilepsy, because we've tried 2 or more anti-epileptic treatments. That diagnosis did give us access to clinical trials. And at the time in Leeds Hospital, there was a clinical trial for, what was it called? Like the ketogenic diet in infants with drug-resistant epilepsy. So he met those criteria. So we enrolled in that clinical trial. And then we got, when we got to the hospital to start the trial, we got put into the traditional interventional arm. So we had to try another AED. So we went on to Keppra at that point in time. We had a honeymoon period with Keppra. We were like, yes, we've got something that works. And like, for 2 weeks, it was wonderful. And then boom, they came right back. Maybe actually with vengeance. I remember it getting really bad after that.
They were completely went away though, did they?
Not, they didn't go completely. Yeah, they lowered significantly, and we were like really hopeful, but then they just came back really bad. So then they immediately moved us into the keto arm, and that was a short admission to hospital. Like, you were there for a week while they transitioned you off of a normal, 2/3 carb type diet onto a ketogenic diet. And he is a little, not so little anymore, keto machine. Like, he produces those things with very little effort, which was nice. Because achieving the right carbohydrate, fat, protein ratios to give you the therapeutic level of ketones you need in the blood to be effective. Some kids struggle to produce ketones and they need really aggressive diets. With Elijah, it was quite moderate. So that actually helped us when it came to food and everything else. So yeah, we came home from hospital pretty quickly because he was just sailing through this thing. And I think within about 2 weeks of being on the diet, the seizures halved. We went from maybe 60 to 80 to 30 to 40. And then one day, 3 months later, he just woke up and gone. That was it. They were not there anymore. And that was pretty incredible. And then once that process was kind of stable, we took away the Topamax, and then he just flourished. Like, his personality came out. We got to see him again, and that was wonderful. That kind of phase lasted about a year. And then one day, they just really subtle, like in the eyes and head, just these little twitches started to emerge. And we're like, oh,
This is the start.
is the start of them coming back? Is it not going to last? So we spoke to our neurologist, and they said, well, let's add on something else. I'm not a pharmacologist or a neurologist, but I spent a long time looking at how different anti-epileptic medications work, and based on what I knew, or what I thought I knew about MEF2C at the time, I was like, valproate, I think, is gonna work. I can't remember what they wanted to put us on, but I was like, prescription for valproate, please. And they agreed to do that, and within about 3 weeks of being on that, he was completely clean again. And so he's been seizure free 2 years probably now. Yeah.
Since that episode,
Since that episode, and before that was a year.
Like
so
a year before.
he probably only had 3-week relapse, and a very subtle one in between that 3-year period. So the diet has been pretty amazing for him.
How hard is that to manage, the diet?
So
Take some effort.
we do have, the jewelry scales that you get to measure like
The weight of gold.
the weight of life. Yeah, so we need to use those because small variations in the weight will actually affect the ratios. So you need to be quite precise in terms of keeping his macros basically to the right amount so that he can have the right ratio. So
Yeah, we weigh his
it has
fat
to be
to
precise.
carb to protein to the gram.
Yeah, the ratio in the keto diet is basically the ratio of carbs to everything else, right? To protein and fats. So that's how you that's how you manage it. But we have had like panic moments where I think one day we were going for a walk, like like an hour or so away from here, and we thought we forgot his food bag, right? Like for example, he cannot eat anything else. You cannot give him anything else. You cannot not even drinks. So there is the content of carbs, fat, all of that, but there's also the calories. Because if you give him too many calories, it can also affect how ketones he's producing. So there's all of that. So you need to have a really good control of calories and the macros. And yeah, and at that particular time,
Yeah, exactly.
Fortunately, we had dropped the bag behind the back seats in the car. It was there. We hadn't forgotten it. But there's that
There's that aspect to it.
aspect of you're very dependent on the food and the specific food that he needs to keep him, managed with the epilepsy. And we've had a few panics going through airports as well because you need to bring his food. And they always make us try and throw away the ice packs in his sort of lunch pack, even though you come with the letter saying that he's on a ketogenic diet and he needs this for epilepsy control, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, airports they're like, what is this stuff?
Yeah, it's like, no, you're not allowed to carry ice packs for anything unless you need to keep insulin cool. It's like, well, this is another reason. Here's the letter from the doctor.
Yeah.
But so
this is his medicine. This food is medicine. That's how you need to think about it. But they tend not to.
they tend not to. So because he's difficult to manage in the sense that it has to be a very precise food preparation, and then you can't miss having the right food at the right time wherever you go because that's the only thing he can have. Yeah.
Time-wise, we probably spend about 45 minutes every evening preparing the next day.
Yeah,
So there's that.
not very batch cooking friendly either, the type of food, right? Because there's not a lot. There is some veggies, but they don't freeze very well anyway, and it's quite fatty. It says that the food is just not very freezer friendly, so we make it fresh every day.
And for Elijah's, from his perspective, I'm sure if he could tell us, it's not the most.
It's not the tastiest, is it?
Probably not the tastiest. It's high fat, so it's always quite goopy and splodgy or whatever. So there's that to it, and it's hard to find variation that meets the prescription. So there's that too. So I'm sure if he could tell us, he would be like, I wish there was more variety, and I wish it wasn't the same texture every day. Like how we can add. And I'm sure it's possible to bring some of that every now and then, but to sustain that every day, we'd be spending hours. So there's that to it too.
Yeah, and for listeners that don't know, if you get knocked out of ketosis, it's like a multi-day to weeks process to get back in again. And it's not like you can just be like, oh, you can have a little bit of a cookie or whatever this one time, because that could throw a wrench in the whole system. So do you monitor his ketone levels?
Yeah, so twice a day we do like a finger prick. I mean, we measure ketones and glucose because there's obviously a low blood sugar level risk as well. So yeah, just before breakfast and before his last meal of the day, which is around like 7 p.m. We measure. We got into such a rhythm and we'd like validated all of his meals in the catalog and everything else. We got into this rhythm where we probably stopped measuring for a couple of years. But yeah, we were measuring at the very beginning, and we are measuring now, and maybe we'll get into that as to the reason why. It's been powerful for his epilepsy to the point. So his EEG when he was admitted to the hospital was a mess. Like it wasn't considered to be like hypsarrhythmic or anything, but it was a jumbled up mess. His last EEG, the report had one sentence in it, which was nothing. I can't remember the words, but like nothing remarkable to report. So we were like, wow, like that's a game changer. I expected there to be something. It was just a one-liner, like normal. So that's
incredible.
It gives you a reason to do it and continue to doing it.
It does, yeah, exactly. Now the challenge with the ketogenic diet is that there's other health risks. So he's been on it for 3 years now, and our neurologists or the team that were running the trial have kind of said, well, you probably need to think about taking him off because of the other health risks of being in ketosis for so long. And they cited bone density, which is likely compounded due to his lack of mobility. So he probably has much lower bone density than people who aren't in ketosis for 3/4 of their life and are mobile. There's the strain it puts on the liver and the kidneys as well. So they were like, our advice from the health professional perspective is you now need to wean him because of these risks. And then if the seizures do return, that will be justification to then take that the seizure control is more beneficial than the risks to his health. So we'll agree to put him back on. So that's why right now we're going through the whole measurement process and paying a lot more attention to his diet, because we're going to start taking him out of ketosis over the next couple of months. And fingers crossed, he stays seizure free. And that it could be that the valproate's enough to keep it under control now, and we move on just with that. And there's so little known about the effects of ketosis on the brain, but there is schools of thought that it can have permanent effects as well. Like it can fundamentally change the structure of the brain and some of the synaptic function, because you're on it for such a sustained period through a period of rapid brain development. He was on it from like 1.5 or whatever it was all the way through to his 5. Like it may have actually influenced the way his brain's developed and evolved to the point that it still has lasting benefits, even though he's no longer in ketosis. We have to say, it is something that worries me.
Yeah, there was a period, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, where like in the fitness space, the ketogenic diet was supposed to solve all your problems and make your dreams come true.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried it then, and it was just too much to manage for me. So I can imagine if you have a child, the complications that come along with them being a child and also coinciding with their development, that just sounds really complicated. But I mean, if it helps with seizures, it's worth it. Through what mechanism does ketosis affect bone density?
Good question. Maybe we need to we'll have to look that up. I'm sure that was explained to us, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you right now.
Gotcha. Okay. You said he sleeps pretty well. Does he walk? Kind of how is his sort of,
Yeah, so he's
are you working on that or?
starting to, I'd say. So Elijah, go through some of the developmental milestones, rolls fine, he can move around with his tummy, which is his primary way of moving around, like the living room or whatever, is rolling and turning on his tummy. He is very capable of sitting up. He gets himself into sitting completely independently. He can sit independently. He likes falling over, like he likes to throw himself around. So that can be a challenge for us. And if you came to our house, you'll see our living room's basically like padded. The floor is just, because he'll be sitting fine and then he'll just like launch himself. So you can get him to sit in, and he can, pivot sitting and turn to where he wants to go. So that's where we are at a competent phase. We are working on standing stability. So he can stand now with very minimal support, without any splints or anything. So we went for maybe years with leg gaiters on, with AFOs, all of this stuff, and we're now at a point where he can stand just with your fingers just either side of his hips, just because his balance is not good enough to stay upright at the moment. If I hold his hands, he can stand. We do still see, as part of his hypertonia, his feet rolling when under load. So if we're going to do any extended standing, we do use something called a sort of DAFOs, dynamic ankle foot orthosis. So they're like AFOs, but very thin plastics. There's a lot more flexibility, and they wrap around the whole foot. So actually, once you do the straps up, they're actually quite rigid. but they allow him to flexion and extension of the ankle, which gives him a more normal gait when we're practicing taking steps and things like that. So they've been wonderful for him since we've had those. But so that kind of leads me into standing with very minimal support. And then he has shown signs when extremely motivated by something, he will transfer his weight and start to take steps. It's pretty clumsy at the moment. He doesn't quite have an even gait, and he needs support through the stepping because he just has the balance is nowhere near good enough. But it's exciting to see him working towards that, because I think for a long period of time we were like, well, I don't think we're going to get there.
I think it just took so long for him to sit. We're just like, this is never happened with all this physio and all these hours, and we just couldn't even get to sitting. But one day he literally just pinked up and sat himself. It was like, I think he just
put it all
put it all
together.
together.
And I think that's one point I would say about physiotherapy is it can seem like it's not working, but it is. And I think it's because you're practicing these little bits, and then one day it does all come together and it produces some outcome, like sitting independently or standing independently. And I think it's a case of sticking with it, being persistent, practice every day. I really believe it does help. And I can see Elijah loves it as well. Like if he can be in a new position and hold himself there, even if the physios are kind of prompting his body and giving him some feedback so he can keep himself balanced, he gets super excited when he's doing something like by himself. We're right in that transition from just being his only kind of experience in the world to almost standing and thinking about taking steps. And I think he's going to get there. It might be a couple more years of practicing this like every day, but I think he'll get there.
Yeah,
It's super exciting.
that is super exciting. We talked on our episode with Meredith and Aaliyah. Of course, people's experiences vary. Meredith said that Valley's progress is like very, very gradual, like little tiny steps forward every day. But for us, and it sounded like for Aaliyah, it was more like punctuated equilibrium. So like instead of little bits forward every day, it's like bang, he'll pick up 3 new things in 2 weeks and then nothing changes for 3 months.
Yeah, I think that happens. Sometimes things come and then they go and then they come back. It takes a couple of times before they stick. Like we see that too.
Yeah, and that makes sense with when you consider how MCHS affects neuronal pruning, because it's a lot harder for them to wear that groove in that neural groove in and connect things. Like if you can imagine here in the US, like, we live near Interstate 70 that runs from Washington, D.C. all the way to LA. Well, before the interstate system exists, imagine how long it would take you to drive that on all back roads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what those neural connections are for our kids. It takes them a lot longer to build those interstates.
Yeah. And prune away the routes you don't need anymore.
So they're spending
the signals to get lost.
Right. And they're spending energy that they could be using to work on learning new things to maintain neural connections that they don't need anymore.
Yep, exactly.
You talked about him liking to flip and flop around, and that's funny because Leo, like he would live his whole life upside down if I let him. He loves to be held upside down. We were talking yesterday. I'm pretty sure that if I was willing, he would let me just crush him to death. He just loves being squeezed and wrestled and thrown, and so I think he just likes feeling those big things because he can feel something. But
his first smile came from me throwing him up in the air, probably looking back on it, higher than I would. I cringe when I see a video of it now. I'm like, geez. But he loved it. Like, his first smile came from being tossed up in the air. And
does he have any other kind of sensory preferences or needs that are specific?
So like you said, he loves these big movements, like to the point that he like throws himself around himself and in his own way. He has the similar typical like water. He really bath time was fantastic. Shower now, and he likes to kind of hold his hands up to the pressure of the water and feel like the little needles on his hands, and that sensation in the water that he really likes. Lights and sounds, music.
Music, I think it's very
Just
music motivated. Yeah.
I genuinely, I would love to put a lefty on an EEG with and without music and just see what it does to the actual brainwaves. I think there's some physiological effect of music in us, but probably more so in them. It might be more pronounced, the effect. Like, it just brings this calm and focus to him that I think we can just see it. Like, as soon as you put music on, it's transformational.
Yeah, we put Leo in the tub, and then we have a Bluetooth speaker built into our light, and we'll listen to music while he's in the tub. And I sit there and tap out the beat on the side of the tub, and he'll sit there, he'll get his eyes even with my hand and just watch me tap. And then last night, it was the first time he did it, but like I got distracted and I don't remember, I quit for a minute, and he stood up and went like, "Come on, let's get back to it, dude." So, but he definitely, if he hears a song that he likes, he will drop whatever he's doing and just pay attention to the song for the entire time. So, he definitely has that.
So music is, and sound, rhythm is his number one sensory preference, and then probably light and color secondary, and combining them's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, that's probably his order of need. And then I'd probably say like water and the hugging and that kind of thing is in third place. So.
Does he use any like AAC, PEX communication devices at all?
So I was thinking about this earlier because I thought it would come up. The main way of communicating right now is like I call it like a total communication. So we don't actually have any direct means of communicating, but based on like context, his body language, what he's doing with his eyes, and the sounds he's making, we can kind of piece together the intent of what he's trying to get across to us. So that we rely on that the most. Just, you're making this sound, you're looking at me in the eye, like proper in the eyes, you're doing this with your hands or whatever it is. Okay, this must be you want me to crack on and feed you because you're hungry, like that type of thing. Or like if he's not liking that, adverts come on YouTube, fantastic communication. If there's like an advert in front that comes in between his favorite show, like great communication there. But he is using eye gaze at school. I can't remember what it's called. Toby.
He's probably was saying he doesn't use his hands very much, or I'd say he doesn't use his hands functionally. Like, he can clearly use his hands to like cover his mouth, or if he doesn't want any more food, or he loves like sucking his hands like as a pacifying thing. But
and he would use his hands to stabilize himself.
Oh yeah, obviously, yeah, he does. I always think it's more like the stuff that's really wired in, more instinctive he seems to do. But in terms of like, oh, I'm gonna go and grab that toy, he doesn't really do that. So anything like Macaton or any other communication devices
use
that
his hands to like
him to use his hands somehow don't really work. So that I guess has been the go-to that he started to use since he's been going to school. So he's been mainly learning cause and effect and playing games with that. And he is very good at controlling the games with the eye gaze. He's definitely got the idea of what he needs to do, but he is a little bit of a cheeky monkey because he can navigate away from whatever they are on the menu. So the communication teacher has just started trying to get him to do a bit more communication choose between this object and that object, and he just navigates back and goes to the games. So he understands how to use the device. He's not yet using it to communicate, I would say.
Yeah, he's not motivated enough to use it to communicate yet. Maybe it's because we're satisfying his needs already enough for him, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a gamer. He's good at them. Like, it's funny, but at the same time, the games are there to teach him how to use the device. So they require him to dwell, so you understand different dwell times, and you have to, be quite precise. We're getting more and more and more precise with the eye. So he's learning the skill of operating the device whilst having fun. And it's just finding that right motivation for him to start helping him realize he can actually influence us with this machine. But he's either doesn't want to, doesn't care, or doesn't need. Quite know which one it is right now.
Yeah.
Probably a combination of it all.
Is, you mentioned him being able to use his hands. Is he able to feed himself?
No. We've started doing hand over hand. He definitely gets the idea, but the control is just not there. So he tends to, rather than bring his hand to his mouth, he'll try and bring his mouth to the spoon. So he
Mm-hmm.
tries to eats like that.
Mm-hmm.
Could he? Yeah, I think he could. Food's a massive motivator for him. He loves eating, despite being on the keto diet.
Probably because of that.
Probably
He's probably quite
he's probably quite hungry. But he's yeah, we're starting to do hand over hand. There's signs that the connection's there, the understanding's there. I just think that's just really hard for him. His hand motor skills with his hands is definitely his most significant delay.
I think so. Yeah.
Will he take, like, Leo will take our hand and try to get us to do something that he wants if he's unable to do that? Will he do that at all?
No. He will or he has. This is kind of intermittent behavior, I'd say, but if there's something like on the tablet or something that he wants, he will try and touch it. But it's not very targeted or accurate. It's kind of like he knows it's on this device somewhere, but he doesn't know where. So that's kind of a signal to us he needs us to interject into whatever it is. But he doesn't use his hands to really communicate much at all in that way. I would say he communicates with his upper body and his arms more globally. So like if we're sitting on the toilet, and he wants to get off, he'll like lift his arms up to say like, come and grab my torso and lift me off the toilet. So he will use his arms in quite a gross sense to communicate, but he doesn't use them to like grab our hands. If he does, it's maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. Occasionally he does grab things, but I'd say I'm unsure if it's deliberate at this point in time. It feels a bit.
Yeah, sometimes it can be difficult to tell their intention too, because things will like we were trying to teach Leo sign language, and this is more.
Yeah.
And like you'll be like, "Do you want more?" And he'll get excited and hand flap.
Mhm.
Well,
Right.
is that his
Right.
best approximation of more, or is that just him stimming because I'm holding up more food? You know what I mean? I don't know. So there are a lot of confounding things like that can
Yeah.
make it really difficult
Yeah.
on top of what you're already dealing with.
Exactly, yeah. I would say one of our biggest developmental successes though is the potty. Like he completely surprised us with how well he took to that.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. What was that like? Because I mean, that's a very pleasant surprise to hear.
Yeah. I mean, he still wears nappies. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like foolproof. But it was probably, I would say 9 months, maybe a year ago, we started noticing when we'd come and get him out of his bed and out of his cot in the morning, he was dry. So he'd gone the whole night, woke up, I don't know how long he's wait for, 10 minutes or something before we come and get him. Not nappies are dry. So we're like, okay, that's interesting. Like, this is consistent. So one day I just put him on the toilet, and he did a wee, and I was like, okay, maybe that's just like the air, the fresh air and so on, and fantastic. But maybe there's a connection we can build here if we can repeat this again and again. So a combination, I think, of that continually giving him opportunities. So we kind of then started on this like schedule where every 3 hours you're going to go on the potty, and finding him a seat that was comfortable for him to sit on. So he was willing to spend a little bit of time there. Over the course of a year, we're now at a point where he knows what it's for. So he'll go, when you put him on the toilet now, he will activate all the right muscles, whether there's something there or not. So sometimes
nothing happens.
Nothing happens, or a fart comes out, but nothing else, because he actively tries.
Yeah.
And he knows the right muscles to activate. But we are dry probably most of the time, most days now. If we're not, it's on us. Like, we've obviously not given him the opportunity, not listened to the cues, because I think he does give us some cues. Like, if he needs a number two, there'll be some farts, and he will make some noise, like sounds of almost. I describe them like discomfort.
Discomfort, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, those two things together, like, he needs to go and sit on the toilet. So it's on us if he has a wet nappy or a dirty nappy, but he's pretty reliable. Now we're done within like a minute. Like, put him on the toilet, you go, we're off. Like, he understands the process, and like I say, it probably took a year to get to that point. But Yeah, I'm again, maybe I don't give him enough credit, but I'm so surprised that he's picked that up so quickly and is
I think
robust with it.
cognitively, we didn't expect him to understand the process, but he got it
He
really
gets it.
quick.
He tells us when he's done, like I say, he lifts his arms up and leans forwards, like, lift me off. So good on him. And it certainly made me try and be more positive about what he might be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a perfect example of why it's important to assume competence.
Yeah.
How is he I want to circle back to this real quick. So you said he doesn't walk, does he crawl at all?
He does not crawl. No.
Okay,
Gotcha.
Again,
Yeah, and again, I think that's
really
yeah.
that his limiting factor. We were working on like commando crawling, like dragging his belly across the floor for a bit, but he didn't really.
Didn't really take to it.
I think again too much effort and the whole arm coordination is not very good. So
Yeah. So he's either really smart and knowing that the planes will bring whatever he wants to him, or he genuinely can't do it. But yeah, his arms are his limiting factor. He will use them to push himself up into like a sitting position and stay upright and correct himself, but he is not using them for crawling, which is interesting. I don't really know why. So I think he could. Like he's got. It's not like he's got too low tone or anything like that to use his arms. I think he could do it, but
I think it's hard work, but like we've had the discussion with the physio so many times, and it's the whole like, well, maybe he could, but why would you? If it's so hard, if it's such an effort to crawl, you might as well not crawl. It's this whole,
Yeah.
why would he do it? So, yeah, he definitely likes standing up. I don't know if it's like he just sees the world from a different angle, but he's always really happy when he's upright. He doesn't seem to have the motivation to crawl.
I said for a long time when we were trying to get Leo to crawl, like, if he would just realize that he had hands. Like, he, for the longest time, used his feet for everything, and I said, "If I could just get him to understand that he had hands,
Yeah.
like, he would just take off." And, like, it was, like after we got glasses for him, I think things changed a lot, and that's when I think he realized that he could, you know, sit up and do things using his hands, so maybe I don't know. It seems similar between the 2 is, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it seems like those sort of cross like to crawl properly, you have to coordinate your right arm and your left leg and your right leg and your left arm. So I know Leo has problems with like cross coordination
Mhm.
across his body. Something he needs to do with both limbs in unison, he can usually pick up readily. Like he will crawl properly if there's like a particularly technical area he needs to get through. But if he's just like crawling across the living room, he reaches both hands out at the same time
Mm.
and then he
Like,
flings both legs under
yeah,
him
like
and it's
bunny
like a
hops
bunny hop.
across the run. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
One thing is reminded me with the hands. I think that's been even like through the pregnancy when I think about it. Like we never saw an elbow or a hand come out,
It was
punched. We were
always
only
feet.
it's always feet. We're always kicked, but never punched. Or you were always kicked and never punched.
Yeah.
And on the scans we used to always see him moving his legs, but his arms were very still always in the ultrasounds. So it's like even then I'm like the sign that I can see it like
yeah.
even then, like the same traits ring true even today.
Well, and the fact that he wasn't really pushing to be born,
Yeah, he
basically.
didn't really
It's like
contribute to that
he didn't really
process.
contribute. We talk about all of this with the obstetrician afterwards, but she was like, she she was like, I put your bets on me that you were gonna be able to do it, but he was not helping.
Yeah.
So we just had to make a call in the end. It's like, yeah, because we were debating between C-section or not C-section, sort of last minute, and then she was like, yeah, I was like, yeah, you can do it. But like again, in hindsight, we think he was just a bit floppy. He just hypotonia, he wasn't really contributing to the process.
But the arm, he just never really moved his arms at all.
Yeah, we kind of chalked that up before Leo got glasses. Like when they said, "Oh, he needs glasses," we're like, "Oh, that makes sense," because he used his feet for everything,
Yeah.
and we were like, "Oh, that makes sense," because he can't see.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, it's improved, but he's still like he doesn't do it so much to her. I don't know why, but like if he's sitting with me doing something, a lot of times he wants to have his toes in my beard, which just drives me nuts. But he just wants to touch me with his feet somehow. He still gets a lot of sensory input out of those, I
Yeah.
think.
I think that's true for Elijah. Yeah, I think.
Maybe they just have better
Yeah.
control. I don't know.
How does he do sort of socially with other kids at school or with his you said he has a little brother, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, generally kind of ignores everybody unless you're someone who can meet his needs. Like he gives us pretty good eye contact now and will communicate with us. But I think he enjoys being in a social environment,
Mm.
not necessarily participating. But he went to like a normal daycare until he was 4.5. And he loved having the other children around, and they would bring him books and they would bring him things. And he, especially when we were doing like standing practice, and he was, eye level with his peers and amongst all the chaos in a daycare, like he loved that. So I think he enjoys that aspect of life, but he doesn't really participate. He like observes. That's probably how I'd describe it. And that is one of my concerns about him being in a special needs provision is that he misses out on that kind of social normative environment because he's with some of our very vulnerable children in his day-to-day environment. So that is something that I'm aware of, and we try to provide him those opportunities where he can be in a normal environment, go to like a soft play center where his kids just charging around like maniacs, and he'll just sit there in the ball pen and watch. He likes that.
Are there any particular therapies or interventions that you think have been like really particularly impactful?
There's been some that have been very unimpactful. Okay.
That's a good answer too.
Speech and language therapy has been not very helpful for Elijah, I don't think. Like, we didn't get a lot of that. So that's one that I pass on. One that we have, but we don't really have the luxury of accessing it in our area is DMI, or Dynamic Movement Intervention Therapy. He's had a couple of sessions, and we've always found that it feels like he's made steps forward faster after those than he has with more traditional sort of PT type sessions. So that's something that I think if we would do more of if we could do more of. We found rebound therapy like enjoyable for him, like on a trampoline. Like it's basically physiotherapy on a trampoline. He's enjoyed that. I think that's been helpful to him.
I think that's particularly good for the tongue, right? Because like he works where he likes it or not. So.
Yeah, you're bouncing on a trampoline. You need to
Yeah.
hold a position. You need to engage your core, and you need to be working just to even participate.
That's been quite good.
That's been good. Hydrotherapy's been good.
I think more for the sensory than the physical therapy. Perhaps he just enjoys that too much, so he's really chilled when he's in the pool.
Yeah.
So
You need somebody who's very competent in the pool with children like Elijah who are willing, who can make him work. If you don't make him work, he will just sit there like it's a spa day. So yeah, he needs to be worked when he's in the pool, but I think that's helpful. And then I don't want to forget like traditional physiotherapy is kind of our foundation to everything. So I wouldn't not do that. Like we still do hours of that every week.
Well, I would say if we're ever on holiday or for whatever reason his physiotherapy, she does other things, so sometimes she might travel and be away for a week or something. If there's ever a gap in his sessions, we actually feel it in his general well-being. Like he'll get a lot windier and maybe he's a bit crankier and doesn't sleep as well. So there is definitely the general maintenance aspect of it, perhaps.
Well-being, health benefits of just doing something every day.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We definitely notice it if for whatever reason that's not there.
So yeah, but I'd say out of the kind of the non-mainstream stuff, I think DMI is definitely something I would recommend to anybody who asked.
Leah's physical therapist has just recently started learning, and she did a course on DMI, and she actually had us travel a couple hours away to take him specifically to do the course with her because she thought he would be, benefit from that as well.
Yep.
So he'll be doing an intensive this summer, but you're right. I do see a big difference when she does the DMI with him versus with the regular physical therapy.
Yep. It makes me as a parent watching it like I have to like hold myself back from intervening, like because I feel like it's gonna fall or this. It really pushes him, but I think that comes with the benefits.
Yeah. And it's interesting you talk about sort of just the general well-being and physiotherapy because, excuse me, I know for a lot of autistic people, which, MCHS and autism aren't the exact same, but they're kind of the closest proxy we have. They get an incredible amount of value out of exercise, just in general for their health. Actually, we're having an episode later this month with a woman who is a personal trainer specifically for high support needs autism. But, people who are like spellers and stuff who say that might be the most important part of their day, just being able to get
Yep.
sort of that physical input and get that energy out. So, um, can you talk about sort of how you got involved in the research side of things, how that all transpired?
Yeah, that came from this desire to try and do something about it. And I guess that originated from all the research we did and all the papers we read. I think it was one of these, maybe it was a bit of naivety, but like when we read the papers, we were like, hang on, I think we can do it. We're like, this doesn't feel like it's not solvable. Like reading about some of the mechanistic stuff and, um, some of the data coming out of, some of Dr. Lipton's research with nitrosynapsin, it was like, okay, look, you can clearly influence the the disease in animal models. So surely we can do something about it. So I think that kind of gave us um, that motivation to.
I think just before you get super deep into the research stuff, I think the other element was probably the fact that I think at that point we had had several experiences of trying to find support for Elijah and, get him the right treatments, the right therapies, the right school, the right everything. And every single step, I don't know what your experience is for you guys, but every single step for us has always been a struggle. Like, he doesn't talk. He doesn't stand up for himself, let's say, and unless you have someone that's really speaking on his behalf, fighting his corner. I think that was like probably the other trigger of we do really need to do something because he's gonna be happy and well looked after whilst we're here. But what happens the day we're not here? And we really don't. At that point, he didn't have a sibling, but we don't really want to burden the siblings and all these things. Is like what
How can
can
make
we
him less
do?
vulnerable?
Yeah, so that he's not so dependent on others because the system is just not prepared to help them. If he didn't have someone fighting his corner, he'll be literally left on the side and not getting what he needs. So I think that probably tipped the balance for us
That's definitely
towards
a factor.
we just have to. We just have to. I don't think I could sleep at night if I wasn't aware that we're doing something towards helping him the day we're not here.
Yeah, I think that's what made us look at the science for opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, then that was the foundation, and I think that led us to reading the literature and going, yeah, we think something can be done, and we kind of looked for common threads, like who's publishing in the MEF2C space, and because there's not many, and we started seeing common names cropping up, so we started engaging with them, and I think Dr. Cowan was very receptive to putting his extensive knowledge to use and agreed to meet with me whilst I was in the US on business. So I think we had our first face-to-face meeting in October of 22. And it was very fundamental chat about, hey, like you had the opportunity to do something for the patients, like, do you know what you would do? And that's when we first started ideating on some of the therapeutic pathways and interventions that we could look at developing. So that kind of sparked this, hey, we might need to think about forming an organization so that we can start driving this research forwards. But it was kind of just you and I at that point in time, really. But that first meeting was successful. Dr. Cowan was started, trying to formalize his thoughts into like an actual research proposal. And then that Christmas, we ended up meeting a few people who have been kind of instrumental in and that work. And so at that Christmas of 22, we met Helen Eaton and Matt Eaton and their daughter Lyra. Shortly after their diagnosis. And they were immediately like, yes, like, let's do something about it. We're with you. And then I also met Isra Batu and their daughter Safura, who they just got their diagnosis
at that time.
around that same Christmas period. And that, with Dr. Cowan's belief and know-how as to how we could do it, that kind of catalyzed the whole thing. And it was early in the new year that we put in the paperwork for the MEF2C Foundation into the Charity Commission in the UK, and it's just grown since then.
It's probably non-stop since
It's
then.
been non-stop, yeah. I think I went back out again in March. Me and Israel then visited Dr. Cowan in March to do a formal review with MUSC of the proposal, and we're like, okay, this looks good. You guys have the tools, the capabilities, the know-how to actually execute this. Let's bring it to the community. And I think it was in June of 23 when Dr. Cowan first presented his vision to the parents of the Facebook group, and that was a phenomenal response by the community.
Yeah, and that was like whenever I tell anybody, like, yeah, we're a really small community, but the whole community worldwide got behind this. We raised $500,000 in the space of 3 months, I think, right? Like, that's really enabled all the treatment development work. Like, people just don't believe it. It's all thanks to everyone getting behind it at that point in time. I think it was what we needed, because really that's then bought us time, essentially, right? Because then the drug development work's ticking along. We're trying to find other sources of funding, working on the next steps, all that stuff. But that was like a key turning point, I think, of people hopefully hearing that actually there is hope. There is, like, the science says a treatment can be developed, and everyone, or a lot of people jumped on it, really.
Yeah.
And even people that are not interested in the treatment, they still kind of advocated for it, shared it, tried to spread the message. So yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it genuinely is Pathways to Hope. It was named that for a reason, and I think we as in the community are doing a great job of moving that forwards.
Yeah, it's incredible. When we first got the diagnosis, my mom's a special needs teacher, so she has some experience in things like this. And the one thing she said she said a lot of things over and over again, but one of the things she said over and over again is that the parents figure it out. Like, and I talked about this yesterday with Aaron and Chris. Like, when we went to Boston this fall, I was kind of skeptical. It's like, okay, we're gonna have this conference, but everyone is bringing their high supports need child with them. Like, how are we actually going to get anything done if there's all these kids here with us? And mom was like, they'll just figure it out. You have no idea. And she was absolutely right. It's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So what you're involved with several organizations now, correct?
I am involved with the MEF2C Foundation and the Rare Bird, US-based Rare
Right.
Bird organization. I think you are
And
just
MEF2C Foundation.
Yeah, just the MEF2C Foundation.
Okay, gotcha. What is sort of your personal philosophy or strategy in trying to find a treatment?
So how would I describe that?
Fix the root cause.
Yeah, address the root cause for everybody as soon as possible. That's kind of my
Yeah.
And that there's thread in the needle there. That's a big ask, but it's trying to develop a treatment that can treat as many people of our population as possible. And that's going to be key. There are perhaps therapeutic avenues that may be faster to market, but may be patient-specific in nature, like sequence-specific. And I'm personally less interested in pursuing those types of options. And I think, the way Pathways to Hope has taken shape is kind of very much in line with my ambitions as well for getting a therapeutic to our community.
No, I think I was just thinking about, like, I'm genuinely convinced that the treatments we're working on are going to help everybody. The part about the sooner the better, I think in my mind is more related to almost the different institutions in the different countries that then have to agree to prescribe it, like insurances in the US or the NHS here, whatever. They're a lot more reluctant to do so the older the patient is, especially when it comes to neurological conditions like this. So I do have this urgency in my head that we do need to find something that works for as many people as possible as fast as we can, because I would hate for anyone to miss out, not because the treatment is not going to be effective for them, but because, sorry, you're not worth it for the system anymore, it's going to cost us too much money to treat you. That's the bit that really bothers me in terms of the timelines. Imagine we've got a treatment and we can't give it to someone because then it just doesn't want to pay for it if you're over 15 or whatever, right? That wouldn't be the first time when it comes to certain, conditions. So I think in my mind is as effective as possible, as fast as we can. We just can't mess about. So what's the fastest route to get something effective over the line?
For as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also the aspect of, and this may or may not be the case from what I understood talking to Dr. Cowan, but there could be a sort of age window in which, regardless of, if you can access a treatment or not, whether or not it'll be effective.
Yep.
So that's another reason why it's
That is
important to get this.
possible too. Like it might be less effective if you're older. We don't know until we get
Right.
there. So there's like a couple of reasons to just go as fast as we can, administer as soon as possible. And that will also encourage then the different countries to prescribe it the younger the patients are.
So how do you coordinate efforts between both organizations?
Do you mean the MEF2C Foundation and Rare Bird?
Yeah, and any other MEF2C organizations you may
I
work
would say
with.
there's generally pretty good collaboration between the organizations, generally speaking.
Is there sort of, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Is there sort of like a division of labor between the different groups, or sort of how do you do anything to make sure you're all pulling in us in the same direction in a way that's most efficient?
That's the ideal state, I would say. So we're working,
Right, of course, yeah.
we're working towards that. We're working to form what we're calling the MEF2C Alliance to try and be more proactive in the coordination. But if you do think about the timeline of events, right, when we launched Pathways to Hope, only the Spanish org existed at that point, and then we created ours. And then we created ours when we launched Pathways to Hope to enable all of that. So there wasn't really a lot to coordinate at that point, right? What happened afterwards was as organizations got created through that year, some more people kind of chucked money into the pot basically to try and support the project. But the scope was defined, I would say, right? The contract was signed to protect the community, to make sure, the university came through and nothing was going to change. That was going to then mean the money we had put in didn't get used for what it needed to get used. So it wasn't really until later that other orgs came in the picture. And I think probably where this has been more relevant is on the latest effort in terms of doing our preclinical readiness work. So for that, we managed to get good alignment with Rebirth and the German organization to just push that forward. And again, going back to the urgency side of things, we just wanted to get that moving, right? Because it is a requirement. We will not get to a clinical trial without that for the broader population. So we just wanted to get that moving. I don't know if you want to chip in there. I mean, there were several conversations with other orgs and multiple hospitals, but that's what we managed to make click in terms of meeting the requirements of what we're going to need.
Yeah. Exactly. I think the organizational landscape has been pretty dynamic the past couple of years, which has a great thing. That we're seeing more people wanting to get involved, but it has meant that, like let's take the Cornell project as an example. We started working on that with Cornell over a year ago.
Takes a long time.
So it takes a long time to formulate these programs, negotiate contracts, and actually get them live. So, we might have only announced it I think we announced it maybe in November last year, and then it went live in sort of January of this year. But that work started in sort of January of 24. So again, at that time, there was more organizations then, but we've had the Australian organization came online in that interim period, and we've also got the MEF2C Family Foundation that recently launched. So again, I think there was limited coordination needed through that initial phase. How it works, though, I think it's been quite collaborative. So, it was your network with Cornell that kind of got us through the door.
I did my master's there.
Yeah, you did your degree at Cornell, so that helped us kind of get talking to the right people sooner rather than later. I don't know if the alumni thing helped, but the minimum the network got us to the right place.
Well, I think, like another lesson learned for us in all this stuff, it's been, you have to have some connection point. I'm not saying the official way somewhere, but in all the things that we've moved, we've had to have some.
Who you know has really helped.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because we were trying to reach out to Cornell for a while and we just couldn't get through the sort of regular channels until we had the internal connection, and that was talking
Where we
through
need to be.
to the right people quite quickly.
But then, Rarebird have ended up taking the lead on that project. So
Yeah.
that's been like a collaborative, effort to get it to this point. So yeah, I think we're, like Lorena mentioned, the MEF2C Alliance is work in progress. I think there's still more kind of alignment to be accomplished with all of the organizations, so we're all on the same page. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to pull in the same direction all the time, but it's going to create a platform from which we have the best opportunity to do so. So I think that's the intent, and I think all organizations share that intent.
Yeah, I think we're really close. If I can put the teaser out there, but it's just taking a bit of work, and we're trying to coordinate so many different time zones. Even just meeting,
Yeah.
is like a struggle. So
Yeah.
but I'm sure we'll get there.
And I think it's necessary. I don't necessarily know where you were going with the question, but my biggest fear is that we over diversify or over dilute investment and we never actually get anything over. That is something that keeps me up at night. So I'm really grateful we've got all these organizations now, the means that will come with it, but it's just making sure we are applying
Yeah, I mean
those
that's a good
resources and
point,
those
right?
people's time
Yeah, like
to achieve something.
just reminded me of something I think is really important. Like even the path we're on now to get treatment to everybody is not a given yet, right? Like the Cornell project is not yet fully funded. Again, going back to the urgency, we just could not afford to wait until we raise the rest of the funds. So we have taken some level of risk whilst we start the project, but we continue to fundraise at the same time. But that's not a given. We still need to pay for toxicology. And hopefully at that point we'll have pharma picking up some of the fields. But we're still talking millions euro before we can get to clinical trial where we expect pharma will take more of the bill under the wing. So it is not a given. So if we do, this is something we talk about a lot. How do we manage the let's get something to everybody versus diversifying enough and but not spreading ourselves too thin because we have very limited resources at a small community, I would say.
But balancing that with not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
As well. Like there is therapeutics within Pathways to Hope. Yeah, we had, I think it was 4 arms at the beginning of that. We've now really narrowed it down to 2.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working on that. But if we were to put all our eggs in one basket, I think that also carries risk. So there's a balance there. I'm not saying I know where the line needs to be, but I do think the alliance is going to be important in terms of achieving the best outcome for the
finding that best balance we can really.
Sure. Alrighty. So what do you think has been the most difficult part of being Elijah's parents?
What is or was or
Whatever direction you want to take it.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
I think honestly for me is the worry of who's gonna look after him when I'm not here. Because I think I have
Every day.
to come. Yeah, it's probably. I'm assuming this crosses a lot of people's mind, but yeah, it's really hard. Like especially now, I see his little brother, and he learns so fast, and I can almost imagine his future somewhere out there, right? But Elijah, I cannot imagine that if we're not here. And yeah, that is honestly the hardest part because you're kind of enjoying living now, but with the looming worry of I can't fully enjoy the now because I don't know what's going to happen to him in the future. So to me, that is the hardest part, closely followed by the mobility side of things. I really hope we can get him mobile because otherwise he's just not going to get to experience as many things in the world. And I just want him to have access to more experiences. But that's something more tangible, that's more in the near term that we'll continue to work on. So yeah. How about you?
What's the question again?
So what are the most difficult aspects of of caring for someone with MCHS?
I think so. I'm going kind of thinking backwards, like in the past. When his seizures and his epilepsy wasn't controlled, that was pretty traumatic. Like he was suffering every day. Like he would cry if he had a really bad one. And this was happening multiple times, up to 60 times a day. Just living that with him, but not being able to do anything about it was really traumatic. So he's been seizure free for a while now, but that still haunts me. And I hope we never end up there again. But I accept that as a real possibility. As he grows up, his brain changes, his hormones change. It's a real risk that we might lose control. So that really worries me and keeps me up at night. The mobility thing. I mean, right now he's 5. He's pretty big, but I can carry him comfortably. And help him get around, fly pretty regularly. It's fine. It's not easy. It's hard work, but it can be done. So right now, I don't feel like I'm necessarily experiencing all the limitations that we may find if he's a fully grown adult and still not mobile. But it is, it's, I don't know how I'm going to word this. Finding a treatment to me is just critical, and I truly believe it can be transformational.
Mhm.
Now, it may not be, I don't want to use the word cure, it may not cure, but I think it will be transformational. Not walking to walking, those types of things. Maybe
Not talking to
not
talking.
to talking.
Yeah, I think so.
They may not end up, going to university or whatever, but I think I'm really motivated to try and change the kind of course of his life for the better because of that future hardship that you've talked about, but then that potential that, seizures could return. And if we can treat the root cause of his condition, that should go away. Some of these fundamental problems with MCHS should be gone. I would say, flipping the question around, I think there's been a huge amount of positive that Elijah's brought into, at least for
Yeah,
me,
that was my next question, so you guys can just go right
brought
into
into it.
Yep.
I'd make myself sound bad. I think I was pretty ignorant about the world of additional needs and disability. And I came to that conclusion, having had Elijah and how open my eyes now are. I was like, how was I not aware of this? I'm so much more aware and knowledgeable of disability now than I was. And I was like, what world was I living in? I'm astonished as to how blind I was to it and that it's all around us. And I'm so much more appreciative and of the challenges, but also the kind of color and joy they can bring to the world. And Elijah's a case in point in that. Like, he's a pretty happy boy. Everyone he touches in his life falls in love with him, and he's just got that endearing personality, and just lights up a room with his personality in his way. The noises he makes, his laughter, his all that stuff. So it's different, but it's definitely not like lesser. And I've really come to appreciate that, and that's, I think, made me a better person in the world. So I'm pretty grateful for that. I think it's definitely made me a better version of myself having Elijah in my life. So
Yeah, whatever buttons and knobs and switches that MCHS affects, it seems to crank the charm knob all the way up to 10 in every kid. Like, everybody we've talked to, every kid with MCHS we've met, they're just such a delight to be around.
yeah, and we didn't attend the conference in Boston, but we've had the opportunity in the UK to get families together, and so we've had a room full of, I don't know, like 10, 15 families, all with their children with MCHS, and it's just such a great space. It was just full of energy.
I think for me, you've summarized it when you've said he's made you a better person. Like, I would probably say the same thing. He's just made us better people. And his little brother was born. I think we were just in this constant state of like appreciation of these small milestones and just these small things. And I think the whole thing about him touching everyone that comes into his life, I think my take on that is, I think they're just so pure, so genuine, like what you see is what there is, basically. So yeah, they're all innocence, and every laugh is genuine, and every reaction is so genuine. They're never trying to be a naughty toddler or anything like that. So I think that just comes across. I think that's why everybody loves them, really. Yeah, they just make you appreciate life differently. I think just even seeing it through their eyes, it's just different to your neurotypical child, I think.
I got a really good example is the bathroom with which we shower and bath Elijah in has a squeaky door.
Yeah. We've not fixed that on
And we've not fixed it on purpose because he loves the squeaky door. So when it's time to come out of the shower, it's like makes that typical, door squeak sound, and he just bursts into laughter.
Yeah, it's like the best.
So it's like, well, we're not touching that door can squeak for eternity because he just loves it. And it's those the simple things, and you just learn to appreciate them in a completely different light, different lens. And I love that. And I think that goes for communication too. We can't sit down and have conversations and a 20-month-old turns around and says no when he doesn't want to, There's none of that tit for tat, the way, I don't know, I've been trying to think of how to describe it, but I feel like we do understand each other. There is love, and he does find a way of communicating that to us, but it's just not the typical way. And I was trying to, a moment of that we have regularly is at bedtime. Prepare him for bed, change, give him a fresh nappy, put his sleep suit on, pick him up, ready to put him into his kind of safety cell bed, and he just leans in to your shoulder and he gives me a cuddle for a minute before he goes down. And he tells me when he's done, because he'll lift his head back up and kind of turn his weight back, ready to be put down. But we always have that silent moment of just a cuddle. He doesn't use his arms, but you can tell because he leans his body weight into you, and it's a genuine, affectionate cuddle. So it's all there, and it's just different, and you have to listen for it, look for it. But it's there, and it's deep, and it's real, and I love those moments with him. So it's special in more ways than.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's also, in my mind, kind of points toward the fact that there's a lot more intellectually going on than maybe currently through the literature is giving them credit for. And hopefully, even if treatment doesn't progress as rapidly as we want, some sort of communication technologies will advance that allow to bring that out.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely knows patterns of life. He's switched on to patterns of life. He knows a lot about our routine, what we're doing, when, how. So yeah, he's definitely way more switched on than I think he can express. I'm very mindful of that. So yeah, he knows what a red traffic light is.
Oh
If
yeah.
we're approaching a red traffic light, that's a problem because he knows we're going to stop. He doesn't like stopping. He likes to be going somewhere. So yeah, his understanding of the world is definitely greater than I think we can kind of formally give him credit for.
Yeah, for sure. What advice would you give to parents who have just received the diagnosis?
It's okay to grieve. You're going to go through that process, but it will be okay. As much as there is things to grieve about, and genuinely so, there's so much, I gave you a few of those snippets. There's so much joy that there is there too. It's not all the sad and the traumatic stuff. There are positive things. There are happy moments. It will be okay. Someone mentioned, it might have been Meredith, mentioned that poem, the Trip to Holland or whatever it's called. I can't remember now.
Yep.
I found that helpful for me. I know some people are don't like it, but for me, I thought that was a good way to think about it. But I'd probably go a step further. And I mean, I've never been to Holland, but I would say, they've tried to compare Italy to Holland. I'd maybe say it's more maybe it's Italy to Cyprus or something. It's really not that bad. It's so much other good things, so much other joyful moments that you wouldn't probably have with a neurotypical child. It's just different.
I think the advice I would give is it will get better. Like, I do remember feeling like, how am I ever gonna be happy? Like, literally ever again. I had that feeling for weeks, I think. And I think also because it was his first birthday, like a week after we got the diagnosis. And it was really surreal to get like grandma over and auntie. And I was just like, why is this right now? It was just not, but it does get better. It does really get better, and not because you are just accepting of it. We're still trying to find a treatment, but I think it's because you learn that actually, you know what, this is not the end of the world, and we can all live and be happy. And there's generally terrible things out there. This is definitely not the most terrible thing that can happen to you. So I think once you learn to put into context and just focus on all the good things that come with it as well, it makes it feel a lot more like a balanced assessment of our lives rather than just, doom and gloom. Oh my God, why us? Why? I think once you get past that, the outlook is a lot brighter.
There is a book that I read couple of years after the diagnosis, which I really enjoyed reading because of the relatability, because I'd already been through it. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. But I think if I reading it when we got the diagnosis, probably would have been helpful. And it was called Special Antidotes to the Obsession. Hang on, let me get the full title up. Antidotes to the obsession that comes with a child's disability. And I just could really relate to the author. I think her child had maybe quadriplegic cerebral palsy, but there was just so much synergies and relatability to it. I'd recommend reading that to anybody who has a new diagnosis. And even if you're seasoned lefty parent, it's just a relatable read. That'd probably be it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult to describe because I wouldn't just characterize MCHS as a good thing, but there are a lot of life-enhancing things that come out of it, and there are opportunities like, obviously, I can't remember when I was a baby that well, but, like, Leo and Haley and a lot of other people we've talked to, like, I love my mom as much as I can love someone, but it's just not the same as Leo and Haley. It's incredible, and every other parent we've talked to said their relationship between their kid and their mother is the same way. So there are things like that where you have opportunities to experience things that people with neurotypical kids won't.
Yep.
So there are positive experiences that come out of it. And the other thing is, I feel like we're covering a lot of the same ground as we covered in our interview yesterday, but there are common themes that run through all this. There is a school of thought in philosophy that everyone's life is going to be impeded with some sort of burden, and sort of the value to be derived out of life is to willingly shoulder that burden and get what you can out of it, because otherwise it'll just crush you. And I don't want to characterize MCHS as like negative or crushing in that way, but I think that we have a choice to willingly embrace it and try to move forward with it the best we can. And I think that's how you get the most value out of it. So
Completely agree.
Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners as far as like the foundations and how they can get involved?
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess there's a few ways of getting involved. There's awareness. I think we've as a community have done a pretty good job in the past few years of spreading the word. But I think awareness is an important aspect, not just because it's helpful that people know when you say those 4 letters or 5 letters or whatever it is. But it genuinely can change the narrative. If the world is talking more about MEF2C, it is going to help. There'll be more research, there'll be more funding, it'll be easier to get things through the systems we need to get through to better care for our children. So awareness isn't just about the literal sense of awareness, it can genuinely change policy and procedures. So getting out there and spreading the word is really helpful. There's fundraising. I think Lorena alluded to the millions of dollars it takes to actually get a treatment. All the way from drug discovery through to approval and commissioning. So, and there's enough organizations around the world now that donating from the US, you can donate to a US org, UK org, and we can capture all of those tax benefits. And that's pretty, a huge way of boosting donations is to make use of the tax systems to do so. And I think we've got a good kind of critical mass of organizations now to make the most of that. So fundraising and donations, and there's plenty of activities to get behind. And you're running the Leeds half marathon next weekend for the foundation, and so yeah, get out there if you've got ideas on how to fundraise. Get in touch. So we'll be able to support you or sponsor you or enable your ideas in some way, shape, or form. And then there's showing up when the call comes out. There's a couple of patient-focused projects right now, and Cornell's one of them. Like, sign up to that registry. Even if you don't want to participate in the in-person or virtual assessments, sign up, be counted. And if you're willing and able to participate in this or any other study, past, present, future, do so. You as an individual do matter, and you can make a difference. Like, don't think, well, there's 400 other people, it's okay if I sit this one out. You can make a real difference by showing up. So
Yeah, I would argue because it's so rare, you have the chance to make a profound difference for a lot of people in the future. You were telling me the other day, is it 1 in 30,000 people they think is like the realistic rate of have MCHS? That's a very rough estimate, I'm sure.
conservative estimate is about 1 in
Yeah.
30,000. Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys are engineers, I'm bad at math, but there are a lot of people that are undiagnosed, and in a generation or two, the research being done now could have a really profound effect on thousands of people, if not more.
Thousands of people with MCHS, and then potentially millions of people with other diseases where MEF2C can be a therapeutic target. And we're seeing more and more and more research emerging where that appears to be the case.
Mhm. Yeah. So, if you can get involved, you have a chance to make a really profound difference in the world. But yeah, that's going to wrap this up for us. Do you want to give our listeners the websites for your foundation really quick so they can learn more?
Sure. So MEF2C Foundation is MEF2CFoundation.com.
Yeah, there's the link to all the social media stuff from that
From
MEF
that
website. And I'll just say, if you follow us, we just post all the updates through the different channels. So that's the best way to stay connected.
And then my other hat with Rarebird is rare-bird.org. Again, they have this, all the social media handles will be available on that website. And then just stay tuned, because I don't think we're far away from the MEF2C Alliance being a thing and going live. And, I guess I want to acknowledge Helen Eaton's work from the MEF2C Foundation. In the brains behind that. She's really brought us all together as organizations for those discussions. And without her, I don't think we would be where we are in terms of trying to coordinate the globally on the mission. So big credit to her for having that initiative and moving it forwards. So hopefully we'll be able to just point everybody to that one place for everything. MEF2C.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. We're excited for it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for your time and your insight. Our listeners can contact us on our Facebook page or email us at mef2cast@gmail.com. And thanks everyone so much for listening.